That's better. A lot better. What we got?
Okay, it's 5:34. We better get call the meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Chairman Rob Miller,
Present.
Vice Chairman Sherman Jackson, Commissioner Jacek Steinruck, Commissioner Kendall Smith, Commissioner Helen Ferguson, Commissioner Job Silva, Commissioner Steve Avila, Commissioner Sal Hernandez,
Here.
Commissioner Thomas Mitchell.
Thank you. Everyone have a chance to review the minutes? Are there any changes that anyone sees in the minutes of the last meeting? I hear nothing, so I'm assuming that to mean that there are no changes. Is there a vote to approve the minutes, please?
I approve.
Motion and second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Public comment. Oh, boy. Hi, Jeff.
My name's Jeff Reed. It's glad to see everybody here tonight.
I'd like to revisit a short discussion from the January meeting regarding the gauging station at the Narrows, just real briefly. And I have some other comments related to the wildlife area water level management discussion. And I brought y'all a copy of what I'm going to say later, just so you can have it if you'd like it. And for anyone else that's here, I'm good with it. After the January meeting, I talked to Les Green at the Department of Water Resources for the state, who actually owns and operates the gauging station. And we had a fairly informative discussion. He didn't offer a whole lot of hope to getting the station fixed. He said it was about $7,000 in general to perform whatever needs to be done. My guess is the whole thing probably needs replacement, but we all know the problem with that. A couple days after that, I talked to the county engineer for a little bit on the phone about the gauging station and what he uses it for. And it seems like it's important to whoever's managing the lake level that gauging station be in some sort of working order. Years ago, we had a sign level gauge at the end of Lakeview. There used to be one in the water at the Narrows. There's one on the gauging station itself, but it doesn't kick in until the lake gets to 7.5 feet. So, and I think many years ago, there was one down by Cadra Slough that the department used on a regular basis on the lake side of it. So there is no non-electrical gauge anywhere that I know of. So I encourage Mr. Green and the county engineer, and I'm here tonight to encourage you all and maybe the supervisors into looking at if there's a way that the county can't work with the Department of Water Resources and get the darn thing fixed. It was suggested to me that perhaps there's money in the flood control district bucket that could be used for something like that. But besides just us duck hunters, there's lots of paddlers and kayakers and those kind of people, especially folks out of town that I know look at that gauge before they drive up here from Eureka or from Medford to see if it's worth bringing their boats, canoes, whatever it might be. And anyway, whatever the future holds for the lake level management, I think it'd be important to have a reliable gauge that transmit to the citizens of the state and our county as well as to NOAA. And there's a record now of 20 plus years of water level out there that's electronic, that's searchable, and there's all kinds of good things about having an electronic record. So I just urge all of you to maybe work with the board members or whoever you think appropriate to see if we can't find a solution to keep that thing running. And maybe create it. I don't know if the county has the resources to make just a stick gauge and stick one somewhere, no pun intended, so that we can tell what the lake is when it's below 7.5 feet. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a way to double check. They can reference that to the one that's actually mounted on the gauging station. The one that used to be out in the water 3 feet was the most useful one, and it got busted off a few years back. So anyway.
So you didn't get much hope from the Department of Water Resources, who actually physically own the gauge and in theory have no money to fix said gauge?
That's the short version, but I think a little pressure from the public, my people and the other local people that use it, as well as potentially the Board of Supervisors, might persuade them. I've contacted them probably every other year in the last 15 years when the gauge sands in or whatever it does, and they've been real good about coming up within a month or two to fix it, which they have to wait till the flooding goes down and all that. So, but this year they just said there is no money. But we know how that is. It's a prioritization issue. Could you turn on your mic, Sherman? I'm half deaf. Sorry.
What does it entail to clean it out? I mean, could some guys with shovels go out there and get it, or do you need a clam shovel or something? Or
I don't know what's inside that culvert, that vertical culvert. And I wouldn't want to. If anyone tried to fix it, then it's on them. That's it's a liability issue. But maybe there's a relationship between the county and the Department of Water Resources. I don't know. I'm just throwing something out there.
And I don't know whether the inside of the culvert you're thinking is plugged up with silt, potentially?
That's my guess that that's,
Yeah.
because it always dies when the lake gets above about 9 feet, and then they pull the plug. And this year it died a little sooner. But we all know what sand does. It's in my well, and I live 5 miles from the lake.
Yeah.
And it's,
Reason I'm asking, the county has a pumper truck that they pump drains that with, which mostly end up getting fir boughs and limbs and sticks and leaves and so forth. Possibly that truck could clean the gauge if it, the culvert pipe, if in fact it's accessible.
yeah.
Is it, I have not been out there, is it beside a ramp or any kind of an access to it, or is it just out in the middle of water?
There used to be a more of a dock than anything there that you could walk up to, and if you had a key, unlock the door and do whatever you had to do, and that part's washed away or eroded away, but it's only, to get to the door is about this tall. It's not like it's a huge thing, other than 5-foot ladder gets you in there. And anyway, maybe some discussions could be had to,
I'm looking over at the,
yeah.
at the representatives that are here this evening from the Board of. Thank you. I have no idea whether that's even remotely feasible for the county to clean it out or what's exactly involved, but we should stay after it because, as you said, that's important from a tourism standpoint also.
Yeah, and Mr. Green with the department, he was very receptive to what I had to say. You know, he really was hoping that somehow some consortium could be put together to keep the thing running, you know, which sounds easy on the surface of it, but we all know better. But all we can do is try. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment this evening? Seeing no other public comment, anybody have any status reports? Notice I'm looking over at the lake level manager.
So nothing's happened. The status is we're waiting as a group to approve this plan and send it forward to the Board of Supervisors.
What would that need?
Pardon?
What would we do to move over to the supervisor?
We just say we agree with it as written and send it up, or we say we agree and make changes as,
You supplied us a plan last meeting, I think, right?
yes.
You didn't forward it to us, my dear.
I'll try and remind you for the next one. How's that?
What we need to do is we need, go ahead and forward the plan again, try to have everybody review it and so forth, so that at the next meeting, we could approve it and send it on for a consultation with the board supervisor. Yes?
You've all seen it, right?
Making a motion to approve it? Oh, there's a motion to approve it.
Yeah, I read it, so I'll second that motion.
Oh, there's a second. We certainly could. You're welcome to come back again, Mr. Reed.
What he said.
Okay, I think Jackie handed out the comments, and I'm going to read a lot of this. It's only one page, but I think it's relevant to not necessarily the consideration tonight, but consideration in long term and where the county may be going, or any group is going with the water level management on Lake Earl. And so a lot of this is background information. I'll try to get through it fairly quickly, but some of it is, from my perspective, is rather important. The first half of this page came from the 1989 Department of Fish and Wildlife Management Plan that was signed off by Director Bonatella way back when. And some of the interesting figures from that gave some estimated lake surface acreages at various levels. And these are important to me as a duck hunter, but they're also important to me as a fisherman, a paddler, a canoeer out there. And it's the kind of thing that if you don't go on the lake hardly ever, which is most of this county. You really don't know what's out there. At the 4-foot level, there's roughly 2,500 acres of surface out there, water surface. At 6 to 8 feet, it's 3,000 to 4,000 acres. At the 10-foot, which is about where it's been breached for the last 10 or 15, 18 years, it's 4,500 acres. And the important piece of this is a lot of those acreages, you can't see them standing on the shoreline. They're flooded seasonal wetlands that go back 100 yards to a quarter of a mile in some people's property, in some public land that we all would like to recreate on and so forth. So those numbers are important to me from a wildlife conservation perspective. And as we know, it's a balancing act to balance the lake water level with what's best for the surrounding property owners, the fish and wildlife habitat, and recreational use. The next part of this document is related to what the department had planned to do in 1989 and then what they failed to do. And they had, for all intents and purposes, a good outlook on where they wanted to go with this. And it talks a little bit in here about the history of the breaching by the county around 4 feet and mentioning that it was, often below the 4-foot level. And what they said about their own plan was that the water surface elevation will be maintained at higher levels, meaning above 4 feet. Surface acreages will be increased accordingly, which is what those previous numbers I read to you were. The intent is to manage the lake at levels that provide the greatest biological and recreational benefits. Best practices to achieve these objectives will be determined over time by monitoring water quality and biological diversity. And right there is where the department totally failed. They had, from my perspective anyway, reasonably good intentions to raise the lake level somewhat, but they failed miserably at monitoring it as far as habitat improvement and all those things they talked about. We'll give them a numbers, well, they did a horrible job. But they admitted in the next paragraph, certain constraints will limit the maximum water levels that be maintained, so periodic breaching will still be required. Well, duh. You don't have to go to college to figure that one out. Because of these constraints, protection of county roads, maintenance of Aleutian goose habitat and mosquito control, and so on, water elevations will be maintained at no more than 6 to 8 feet at the highest. That lasted from 1995 until about 1989, if my memory serves me correctly, where they kind of kept it in that 6 to 8 foot exploratory level. And then they mentioned that those level surfaces lake area surfaces would be 3,000 to 3,500 acres, which to me, in the time I've spent out there in 45 years of living here, that's sort of the sweet spot from my perspective. And I'm a little biased as a duck hunter, but my world doesn't revolve just around that. I recognize there's other conditions here. And they mentioned in the last paragraph, it should be noted that permits are required from the Coastal Commission, the Corps of Engineers, yada, yada, and yada, that we're all familiar with. And the department assumed that the conditions from those government agencies would be met by maintaining the lake at 6 to 8 feet. So my question to them would be, so why the hell are they managing it from 9 to 10 feet? If it says right here in 1989 that was all kosher with all those agencies at that time.
So in 2016, there was a court case that came against this, and it was a jury trial from what I read. I think that's right. And in that jury trial, they set the level of the lake at 8 feet. That went to the courts, and they set it at 8 feet. In 2016, it took that long to actually firm that level for fish and wildlife.
Well, that's interesting. Could you
So
send me that?
This is the number that Sean Freeze has to deal with at Fish and Wildlife. It's because he's court ordered to maintain that level.
Wasn't that in response to the lawsuit brought by the Pacific Shores people who lost property value because Fish and Game had been running it too high? And my understanding is the reason Fish and Game, just hearsay, was running it too high because there was a biologist, Fish and Game biologist, that said it needs to be done naturally. Well, we all know it's gonna happen if you
Yeah.
wait for that.
I
Yeah,
don't
but-
think,
but-
I don't think that Fish and Game really wants to talk about that lawsuit.
No.
Well, I bring it up every time.
Oh,
I
well,
can.
we do, but I'm just telling you, they don't want to talk about it.
Well, of course not, because they lost, and they were given a mandate, but they didn't follow it.
Say what?
They're not keeping it between 6 and 8.
No.
And part of the problem is people keep forgetting. They think just by saying, well, we'll breach it at this time and we'll maintain a certain level. Well, if you let it get too high, it blows out, as we all know. And then we have a tidal lagoon.
Well, and that goes back to where they failed to do what they said they were going to do in '89, which was monitor the water quality and the overall effect to the habitat out there. And then there's no way they can say that they did any of that, because it's obvious that they haven't, and they don't have any plans to, based on what you were told, 3, 4, 5 months ago.
Right.
So there's no hope that they're going to do anything to enhance the water quality and the habitat and everything else out there. Because it'll never, you can't simulate a natural breach in this day and age on something like that. It's impossible. So let's be a little more realistic, would be my point to them. The last, and that's, unless there's any other comments on that part from the department.
I don't think that's entirely correct.
Come on up, Craig, it's okay. No, it's a good time to discuss it.
Sorry, Frank Galea. Yeah, my understanding in talking to county administration is, as I repeat, Fish and Wildlife is at 8 feet, but when the county goes to get a breach permit, the California Coastal Commission makes them go to 10. And so you end up with just a supercharged, what?
That's not.
It's 9 for them? Okay.
So 9 feet is the permit when they can put
Right.
the
And then-
request for the
and-
permit in.
And then by the time that they get out there, it's at 10. Yeah, so, or more.
Well, and it's not
Go
that we
ahead.
have any control over it, but it concerns me when a semi-political organization trumps over the organization that we, the taxpayers, pay for and voted in through some management through the regular elections. And the Department of Fish and Wildlife are the people that are actually responsible for the fish and wildlife in this state. It's not the Coastal Commission's job, in my personal opinion. They have other things to worry about, and that's where they need to stay in their lane. But that's beyond all of us. It's up to the courts, unfortunately. Did you want to say something, Helen? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I was just going to say that we have to constantly remind ourselves that the Coastal Commission is a self-appointed organization. And more people need to challenge that. And I think we're at that time here in our county. And I really think if we got to a manageable level, and we don't need to prove that the department hasn't done the studies they're supposed to do, that they would almost have to go to the wishes. And one of the things that you said, but let's go back more than 25 years. Part of the reason it's hard to get your boat in and fish and everything is because of all the sediment that has come around the lake at all the places you can go because of this high, ridiculous lake level. And before, it used to not be that way. And actually, it was my relatives that donated the Lakeview access point, and you could go down there and you weren't wading through 3 feet of mud. And so through that ridiculous management, they've created this, where people could get in with their boats and kayaks and whatever. And that's something I think we need to realize. They've destroyed a lot of what's there.
That's a long list, Helen.
Yeah,
You're
it's a
you're
long
absolutely correct.
list.
And just real shortly, I was talking with a former windsurfer just the other day who used to be part of that small group that went out there windsurfing. late winter, early spring every year. And he mentioned to me that we had a discussion about the access through Bazzini, which I won't get into. But he said, you know, we used to go out there and windsurf from basically the end of duck season until all the submerged aquatic vegetation in the lake sprung up, and you could no longer windsurf out there. And I said, yeah, and you know, that hasn't happened, that submerged aquatic vegetation growth hasn't happened in the last 15 to 20 years. And he looked at me and he goes, salinity, huh? And I go, yeah, more than likely that's exactly what it is. And that, to your point, Helen, that's something else they've destroyed out there.
Yeah.
And that's a huge factor in a lot of the wildlife out there, ducks, fish, whatever. One last thing, and last year, just by coincidence, I took a poll of the Del Norte Waterfowlers, which is a local group of roughly 250 folks, probably 30 to 40 of which are what I would call regular duck hunters that hunt regularly on the lake. And the poll, I've run a few, but this one was concerning their personal preference for when the lake should be breached. And I'll read you these numbers, and you can take them just as they are. No one was in favor of a 9 to 10 foot breach. At the 8 to 9 foot level, 5% of them thought that was a good level. 7 to 8 feet was 30% of the people that responded. 6 to 7 feet was the preference of 50% of our group. 5 to 6% thought 5 foot, 4 to 5 foot was 10%, and no one thought 3 to 4 feet was good. And this, to I think it was Sherman's point earlier, when you wait, and I'll just use the current scenario, they wait till it hits 9 feet to send in all the documents to get it all blessed off, and 2 to 4 weeks later, it's at 10 feet. You know, and no one, it's easy to say, well, we're going to breach it at 5.5 feet, but the reality is the real world operates differently. But the point of me bringing up this preferences from this little group is that we all recognize there's a number, but it's actually a range. Because the reality is the weather, the tide, there's a lot of factors that decide when you're actually going to breach and what it accomplishes. But the thrust, I think, of all of this is we all see the harm that's been done from a 9 to 10 foot breach. And I can guarantee you Lake Earl and Lake Tolowa have sanded in the last 20 years. I don't need a gauge to tell me that. I know where I can get out and walk, where I couldn't. I had to swim before. And it's not just me, it's a lot of people, and it's caused a lot of damage. So with that, I think where y'all are going with this proposal, I think is excellent. Thank you.
Are we dancing? Okay. So it's obvious that certain governmental agencies, there ought to be a way where somebody could agree to the fact that there would be an automatic breach level, period. And all you got to do is fill out a piece of paper and email it, as an example, to Fish and Wildlife and or to the Coastal Commission, and I'm sure the county's been attempting to do so, where once it reaches 9 foot, boom, the next day they can go. But then you have to fill out all the paperwork, you have to do all that, they have to vote on it, they have to do whatever they do, blah, 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 blah.
It's actually a very simple process, and I think the longest point is actually scheduling the cat to go out and do the breaching.
And the tide, right.
I bet
You're right,
not.
tide.
I bet
gotta make sure
I bet the day they
funds are
wanted the
there.
cat out there, it'd be on a trailer and it'd be headed that
I know
way.
the last time that the county engineer put it in, it was 3 days, and they had permission to go. And it was 8 feet 6. It wasn't.
Those guys,
So you're saying we need a lower target?
no, those,
So the reason I wrote the plan and recommend the 4 foot level is because at some point I would like to see salmon reintroduced into the lake system, because it's my belief that the part of the reason the lake's dying is because the salmon aren't coming back in and bringing those nutrients back into the lake system. And you can go after study after study after study where salmon have disappeared, the ecosystems fail. So this is well studied through the state California, Oregon, Washington. So the 4-foot level would allow the county that when, if it's at 5 feet, they're not going to let us breach it. But if the salmon need to get into the lake and it's 4 feet, we can go out and we can breach it and we can let the fish in the lake if we ever get that far to do salmon reintroduction. And that's the purpose of why I would like to say at the 4-foot level, it's probably going to be managed between 4 and 6 feet, more than likely.
Yeah,
And it may
that-
even go to 8 feet. You don't know.
That what he said right now is what the important thing is, because back when Fish and Game first started to take, flex their muscles and say we're going to manage the wildlife area, Gary Monroe was the biologist for them at that time, and Gary Monroe wrote the initial plan, and it said from 4 to 6 feet. So in other words, when the lake got to 4 feet, they would start to prepare, because sometimes it can't be instantly because of a storm or tides, that the effort would be made, and not over 6 feet. So that's what the original intent was. And then they've had 5 million other things happen, and then they came in with this, Karen Kovacs wanted 13 feet mean sea level. And I think if our county will move forward on this, then there's a chance that we can get some of the management, not just for the lake, but for the lands and stuff, back in our control, because they have clearly demonstrated they can't manage it. From overgrown brush fields, high lake levels, the lakes filling in, which all lagoons naturally do to some extent, but not to the extent that is happening here. So that's why I think we should move forward with this plan. Obviously, like everything else, people have a chance to comment on it. And I get what Jeff's saying. You can't go down there and put your boat in 3 feet of mud. But what will happen if they start to manage it at a more feasible way, shall we say? A lot of that, I think, will return. But we can't keep going the way we are.
So one reason the mud is packing in is because they're keeping it at such a high level.
That's right.
And they need the hydrology to have the lake open and get basically they create a pump in the lake by opening it more often with smaller and closing it. You get more hydraulic action, which sucks the sediments and stuff from the streams that are feeding the lake out and blows that out. But one big blowout every year.
See, I don't
doesn't
think
do
a
that.
lot of people realize, like, if you go down there and say there's an area the size of this room, and wherever the water level is, you can go out in the middle and kind of go up and down, and it's just like you're on a giant trampoline, because there's more to be considered than just what the vision is of the lake level. It's what's going on underneath, too.
I don't remember, maybe somebody remembers when the coho salmon study that NOAA did 20 years ago now, maybe 18
Closer to
years ago,
25 probably.
about all the rivers, even up into the southern Oregon and the Klamath and the Smith, et cetera. Well, I can't remember if was the lake included in that coho study?
Kind of, sort of, maybe.
I don't remember exactly. I know the Smith, the Klamath, all the coastal rivers were included.
So the salmon, I believe the salmon are Chinook that were in the lake, that come in and out of the lake.
You think?
The
They're
silver salmon.
Coho.
Yeah, silver.
That lake is prime coho
Yeah.
rearing.
Is it coho?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Prime coho country.
Yeah. They actually have, we had the studies at our Supreme Court in D.C. From their own biologists back in like 39. There was like 72,000 silver salmon that came up Yonkers and Jordan Creek. Proportionally, it was a little lower for one of the streams within 72 hours after it was breached.
Was Kovacs the biologist that said that there was never any salmon in the Lake Earl system?
Well, we can say she did because she said a lot of things.
Well, somebody did.
Well, it's probably her.
Yes. Oh, you got to come to the mic.
Can you come to the mic, sir?
You need to come to the microphone. Sorry. That way, folks that are listening on the Zoom can hear.
Fish and Game can hear.
Thank you.
They did a study on, and they were silver salmon, and all the ranchers and everything would let the lake go. They'd all bring their pitchforks and clean up on the silvers. That was their winter salmon.
Sure.
What I understand is Karen Kovacs went to Sacramento and destroyed it. So,
There's your answer.
Well, and of course, there is a big push for restoration of coho salmon, so maybe that's something that should be investigated further.
Well, the butterflies that drowned out there, that they're talking about trying to bring them back, but you can't have them feed and lay their eggs and do their cycle under 6 feet of water. And so there's several species that need some attention. And just for the record, talking about breaching the lake and the snowy plovers, well, we were out there twice during the elk hunt, and there was this guy in Park's vehicle with a quad in the back, and they were down on our Grange property, so we went down there to see what they were doing, which is fine if they want bird watch, but not on the quad. And so anyway, the second time, I met up with him and start talking to him a little more, and I asked him if he had a degree, where he went to school. He said Humboldt. And I said, well, do you have a degree? And he said, no. So the biologist that is controlling all of that information out there, and he's doing it at Clam Beach too, because I called Dennis Mayo down there. The same so-called biologist does not even have a biology degree, but it's controlling everything that we do.
Well, that was very entertaining. Optimistic, too, I might add. Any other public comment? So we'll
I
continue.
just have one.
Oh.
Looks like we had a great herring run this year.
What are we going to vote?
We need to do the vote. We have a
yeah,
motion and
let's
do
second
that.
on the floor.
Yeah. I'm sorry. So we have a matter before us to vote on the Lake Earl Management Plan. And there was a motion and a second. Any other comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So I would assume what we should do is, forward that again to the counselors, and then we should send it to the board secretary. Sound right? Okay. Thank you.
I just have one comment on that. Is there any way that can find its way to the California Fish and Game Commission?
I don't think they'll be a part of it anymore.
How is that?
Well, if we put the management plan and set it, if that's what the county wants, because they can't manage anything that they have. And right now, Sean Freeze told me they got 59% of their budget, and he's the land manager. He said 59% of their budget was cut.
I think it's a little bit unrealistic to believe
Abrasive.
that that even if the county voted yes on the plan, that it would go very far down there. Don't know.
Think it's worth a try.
It's worth a try. You only live once.
So just a quick outline, there's a couple different ways. The county can just take this as their own measure and implement and wait for the backlash. And if that doesn't work, then you go with the FGC, FSC Form 1 that goes to Fish and Wildlife for change of regulations. And we could do that from this, or somebody from the public can implement that form and turn it in, or it can go from the Board of Supervisors. There are many different ways that this can be acted on. So,
One would assume that we should send it to the board first and try to get some board comment, public comment, some possible information that way. And if you get comment, you get comment. And if it just kind of evaporates, then there's some other system potentially. But, you can rest assured it's on their radar screen.
Oh, it most definitely is.
So I would like to have some feedback from the board and see what options the board has.
They're not going to give you any feedback tonight.
Not tonight, I mean, but
Look at them. See the smile on their face? They don't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe someday.
I mean, I don't think that we're a lame duck organization. I mean, we need to have feedback on policy and that we're recommending, so that's.
I think once they get a copy of it and have a chance to digest it, and maybe have a chance to review it and go through whatever, then we'll get some feedback, because it'll come up before the board, and it'll be on an agenda, and we'll need to be present and go to the board meeting and testify and so forth and so on to see how they're going to be, whether or not they're able to. Because
I understand the bureaucracy.
as you well know, there might be 10 people or 4, and there could be 50 people against.
As it is right now, Rob, I think the county provides all the manpower, fills out all the permits, actually carries out the breaching, and our county's already doing all the mechanics of it, and they're just standing by to bless it. So it wouldn't be any extra expense. And in addition, the road beds that are eroding away and have been for years, because like I said, the surface level of the lakes is not the only thing. Our county has incurred all those expenses of fixing the roads, like Lower Lake Road. So the county is doing all the work for them at this point.
So now, that's what I never understood is why the county monitors the level of the lake. The county has to put in a permit for the lake. The county pays for the cat to go out and breach the lake, but we don't have any power over our own flood control. We have to get permission from the state. And that's wrong. That is flat wrong.
And additionally, a lot of the funding comes from all our tax dollars through the flood control districts.
So one key question is, has the state ever denied a flood control permit to breach
No.
the lake? No. So why are we doing this? Why do we have this extra level put in place? It makes no sense whatsoever.
We
Next.
needed better legal counsel.
With the budget of Fish and Wildlife for this fed gone cut 50%, and they do not have they don't have a fish and waterfowl biologist on staff to even do the studies. They have breached their contract for this lake level. They breached the whole thing. There's 3 endangered species are most likely been wiped out already. And that's a concern. And if it's not a concern for the board, man, we're in deep shit. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm sure it is a concern. It's getting through the political steps to get it fixed. And chances are the step that's unfixable is Coastal Commission, not Fish and Wildlife. Chances are it's Coastal Commission, not Fish and Wildlife, because the Fish and Wildlife says 8 foot. And you can apply at 8 foot, and then the Coastal Commission does whatever they do. And they delay, and they delay, and they delay, and delay.
So that's the same action that has occurred for the last 20 years is what you're describing. And we need to break that if we're going to save our own ecology, this habitat, lake. We really need to do something now. I mean,
Well, buy cat.
Hey, this is
I've
our
already been
county.
down
Our
that
county
road.
has to act. Our county has to act. This is not something that we can just stand by for another 20 years and wait for Fish and Wildlife to come up with some new idea. We need, and if we go back to the old way things were done, there were lots of ducks on the lake. There was plenty of fish in the
Just,
lake. I fished that
just
lake all
to
the time.
have everyone put it in the back of their minds, when Pacific Shores did that, they got called into federal court, and they got a violation of the Rivers and Harbors Act of 1893. They couldn't touch them for anything else.
Yes. Sorry. No, I know, he's a, yeah, never mind.
And they wrote in there where the supervisors had the control of the level of the lake.
That's correct.
But they were mealy-mouthed and they were overrun by the government. But they have the power, our supervisors have the power to open that lake according to the flood district.
That's 100% correct, because we took that to the federal court. And, we ran out of money, or we'd have won. But that is right. And there's 5 flood control districts in our county. And the directors for the flood control district are the county board of supervisors. And so either we're going to have to rescind that and say, oh no, we don't have any power over our flood control district, or it's going to be a powerful tool for a lower lake level, if that's what the board decides. And all the evidence is stacked in that direction. I'm done.
Whew, that was a good one. Anybody else have anything to add? Thank you. So we move on to business. Anybody have anything on public lands, state and or federal? Private lands? Elk?
The drawing, I think, was done today for the 5 remaining tags in the spring elk hunt. And so we should know who gets those here in the next
When are they
couple.
going to tell me I won?
I don't know. I don't have that poll.
I would guess 2-3 weeks.
It should be out, if the deadline was yesterday, I think it might have been yesterday, it'll probably be out tomorrow. It'll be out this week.
Victoria may know.
Huh?
Victoria may know.
I think she'd have sent it if she did.
Yeah. Oh, we've beaten Lake Earl up with a stick, and so we don't have to do that anymore.
Are you aware that there is an elk working group working down in Humboldt County? Okay, are you in contact with those folks? Great.
Yeah, we know them all.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
I've gone to a couple of our meetings.
Yeah.
We're really tuning down the number of meetings we're going to have. But,
Yeah.
Okay, great.
They're about 20 years behind us, but they're coming along.
They're slowly getting caught up to us. Slowly.
Slowly.
Yeah, because now all of a sudden they have elk.
Bingo.
Yep.
They've been through the same things that we've been through for the last 20 years, but it's only been about two years down there, maybe 3. It's getting worse. Does anybody have any updates on the wolves coming to town?
There were just rumors flying around town a couple of weeks ago, but nothing's been confirmed, so there's really nothing to say without any hard evidence.
They're coming. Wolves, that takes care of it. So,
Are we ready for the homeless?
heavens no, we're making Miss Starkey sit there patiently.
Okay.
So, has anybody actually been by the boat ramp at Saxton's? The The state was supposed to fix it, but they didn't fix it. The guy told me they were gonna fix it, they didn't fix it. And now there's blacktop in the holes. At least it's enterable nicely without leaving the axle to your trailer in the hole. See, I knew I created a monster.
Oh, I just want you to know that the Board of Supervisors actually approved for that to be done with county road funds. Did you guys know that? Okay, so, yeah, it's just blacktop in the holes, but at least it's blacktop in the holes.
That was a shame because when Charles Bortolato was up here, Fish and Game was planning to fund that. No, but he's not with the department anymore, Valerie. Yeah, I know, but they said they had the funding to do it, and then when he hurt himself, then that was the end of it. Yep.
But the county did do it, and it is enterable, and you will not leave the trailer axles in the hole, and it's really a remarkable improvement, and it really is with, yeah, it's actually way better, so. Homeless.
I'm awful gabby tonight, I'm sorry. Okay, I asked a couple of the supervisors to be here tonight because, and I sound like I'm kind of out for Fish and Game, and in a way I am because of their management. And the amount of homeless people, 3 weeks ago, and I didn't get the report, Jeff couldn't get his hands on it today. They went over the homeless encampments on Fish and Game lands because it's a conservative estimate that between 75 and 100 homeless situations, ODs, thefts, whatever, fights, whatever, per week, not per month, are from people that are on fish and wildlife lands or coming right off of them and adjacent to them. And so if you kind of quickly do the math there, when some situation occurs, there's usually the ambulance, of course, which is paid differently. Our special districts, which we pay our taxpayer money to, from the fire department responds. Highway patrol usually responds. Sheriff's department, if a fish and game warden or whatever. So when you look at all the man hours into that, it's a lot of our county money that's going to address the homeless. I asked a couple of days ago for the Fish and Wildlife's policy specifically as far as dealing with the homeless. The do's and don'ts, the time, the procedures, and everything. And coincidentally enough, they have just written a management plan, which is now at Tina Bartlett's office, and it's gone up the chain. And so I was told to call Chad Dibble by Sean Freeze, which I did today, and asked him if we could look at it because everybody's paranoid about letting us look at something because it's in the draft form. And I can kind of respect that to a certain degree, but I felt should have given us an outline of some of the specifics that might be included in that procedure. And of course, it has to parallel what our good governor's theories and rules and regs and so forth are. But the thing that I looked into today, well, I started last week, I asked the county auditor where the in lieu taxes from Fish and Game are paid each year. And when I talked to Jeff today, he said that only applies to the areas that are designated as wildlife areas. Other land holdings that they have that aren't wildlife areas are not included in that. And it's approximately $20,000 to $21,000 a year. And they went back, the auditor did, for 10 years. So we've received a little over $200,000 in the county here from the in lieu taxes. But the problem is that those taxes go into the general fund. And the thing that I feel, I don't know how the rest of you feel, because we've got a lot of issues in our county, but a good share of that should be probably back trying to clean those lands up, help the people that need help, and what the situation is. And I asked the board members to come tonight because I don't know, maybe some of you already do, what their position is of what we're going to do with the homeless if they have nowhere else to go. What's the overall county plan? But these wildlife areas are harboring these people. And it goes right back to lack of management. They have more than they can manage, in all due respect to them. And if our county's going to use tax dollars, then we need to kind of come together to work on it. And so I'm going to be interested to see what these guys have to say, how the homeless problem's being addressed.
Now, in your conversation with them under their draft of the management plan, did they mention anything about putting it up for public review or anything like that?
No,
too?
but that's standard procedure for any plan that they come up with. It's kind of like, here you go. And I do honor what they were saying. It does have to be consistent with some of our state rules.
I'm trying to remember because I haven't looked and so forth. Let's pick one of the most famous locations in the county, Waldo Street. Unfortunately, there's a lot of problems in Waldo.
That's right.
Okay, and I think as you go down Waldo Street,
Right.
somewhere down there, doesn't it transfer into Fish and Game property?
It does. And there was approximately
Are they-
159 people in that encampment, and our law enforcement has reduced it to somewhere between 20 and 30.
Okay.
However, that takes manpower to monitor it,
Yeah.
and it will slip
Yeah.
right back to square one.
And is that property where all of that homelessness is on Waldo, on Fish and Wildlife property, or is it some of it on private land?
I think some's on private land.
And the individuals who own the private land, it continues to expand down
Yes.
into Fish and Wildlife property or
Yes.
public property.
Yes.
Let's say it that way, better than just to put the finger on Fish and Wildlife.
Exactly.
And so there's been a strong attempt on Waldo to remove
Yes.
folks. Has any much of the garbage and leftover whatevers, and I mean, because they're living in travel trailers down there with no windows and doors, right?
Right. And Sean Freeze did send out this memo, and I've forgotten the name. I have it here in a text. He sent it to me. And it's kind of an offshoot of the cannabis cleanup, like for state parks, but down, or state wildlife areas. But down at the bottom, it talks about environmental damage cleanup. And he is the supervisor for that program. And that's how come originally asked him about this. And what we have to do as a county, I guess, would be to have our county point out some of these places to him and see how much time and money and staff that he has for that. And then there's some other new program, I forgot the name of it already, that when our sheriff was at a workshop, there's some, because obviously we're not the only county having this problem. And there's some other ways to apply for some federal monies, and we want to take a look at that. And I'm assuming that these folks here are familiar with what I'm talking about.
So it won't be much longer when the Pallet House location out by the fairgrounds is operational and will be staffed and or housed. That's going to take up, best guess, how many homeless folks?
I couldn't hear you, sorry.
Now we've got him, and whatever you do, don't leave.
The shelter itself is 60, and I believe the pallet homes are an additional 30? 120. Oh, and they're double occupants. Thank you. That was Supervisor Starkey.
She's the
corrected
one
me
that should be here.
So she should be here. But just to kind of clarify what the county's position is we are waiting for that to be open. The unofficial plan is that once it is open, we can tell those people in those places, you have a place to go. Go get out. That's not as simple as I make it sound, because the vast majority of the parcels that these people are camping on are privately owned. And we don't have trespass letters from all of them.
Have you guys contacted the private property owners?
Yes.
Uh-huh. And
For-
what's
for
their
those-
biggest holdup?
For those that we can get a hold of, there's, about a year and a half ago, the county acquired about 82 parcels that were in a situation where they had been in the family for a long time. The children of the original owners were like, we don't want the property, do whatever you want. There's very little tax. I don't even think they were getting a tax bill because it was such a small amount of taxes that were owed on them. So we just, they were tax defaulted, so under those tax default laws, we acquired those. But still, there's a whole bunch of property parcels that are in the Ruth Compound area, the South Bend area, the Waldo area, that are kind of difficult to deal with. And it puts us in a tough spot because they are privately owned.
Now,
And-
couldn't you
and-
guys maybe do like a blight for the blight ordinance to the landowners? So that
Yeah.
way they can
Yeah,
start putting
definitely.
pressure on them to kind of
Yeah,
move the people off?
we actually have put pressure on a few property owners, like, hey, you need to clean up your property, that parcel's worth $6,000 and there's $12,000 worth of cleanup to do. So they're like, take it. So it kind of puts us in a tough spot. Really, it's going to fall back on the county to find some kind of funding mechanism to clean those up.
How many homeless is your guys' estimate?
That's what I was just asking Valerie about our pit count this year. I don't know what the current count was this year. Last year it was 680 something. So I know that we were
680 minus 120, uh-oh.
we were still number one in the state per capita for homeless for Delaware County. Not our proudest accomplishment.
It's interesting because my wife's aunt passed away. She had a house on Temple. It's the last basic house on the right. We've been in the process of trying to get it cleaned up and ready to be able to sell, and are going to have to get it surveyed because at the end of Temple, that property has gone from okay to bad, and then blight folks came in 3 or 4 years ago, 2, 3 years ago, whatever it was, moved out the trailers, cleaned it all up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and it's now worse than it was. Now, I believe that there's a guy that's built a tent house on the end of her property. I've asked the sheriff, it has to all be posted. So if you have if you own private property and so forth, it has to be posted. Otherwise, they cannot remove someone that they actually find trespassing on your property.
The trespass letter works for law enforcement.
So
as well.
that's all been handled there because those people come and go through that property. I've been building fence there the last number of weekends and so forth to try to keep them from crossing the property and having to go down the street and around the corner. But, and farther down Temple, it must transition at somewhere down there into Fish and Wildlife. And there is obviously an issue with pollution and what's going on with
Without a
what.
doubt. You know the pond that's down near Sand Mine Road, that's a pretty big pond there. Well, that butts up against that place at the end of Waldo. So we know that Fish and Game would like to take hold of those parcels if they were cleaned up. They're not willing to do cleanup. They're willing to take them if we clean them up first.
That's what Jeff told me today.
And they're wetland. They're not buildable. We for sure want to keep those parcels that are buildable. Some of them right close to State Street at the end of Waldo, we believe would be. But as you get closer to that pond, of course, you're going to have it being too wet. So Fish and Game wants to acquire those, but they're really privately owned right now. So
Part of the issue with cleanup, if you own the properties down in those areas before it gets onto Fish and Wildlife property, there's a significant amount of expense, and if you're a private landowner and you got somebody squatting on the property and they leave, you're responsible to clean it up, right? So at this stage, it's probably best if you see something happening to get rid of it before it embeds itself there and becomes a squalor.
Would you consider our homeless an emergency situation?
It has been for a long time.
Okay, well, if it's an emergency situation, don't you think some kind of an emergency ordinance could be put in place with the idea of kind of protecting the private landowner and maybe get more cooperation that way? Because if you go out and shoo them off, it's just like what he said, then you're responsible for cleaning it up. Maybe you get more community support that way. Because I know, and then who's going to hold, if they say, okay, and they walk off and leave their stuff, and then isn't it 72 hours you have to keep their stuff?
You may be right. I'm not aware
I think it is. Yeah.
Something like that.
So who-
I know that Daphne has talked about when we take a homeless person to a shelter that we have to do something with their property. So you may be dead on there. it's not
I'm pretty
familiar to me.
sure that that's right. And so that kind of begs the question of who's going to monitor all these belongings and who's going to, tag everything.
Well,
so
we have done in the emergency realm, the vehicle code allows us to block off streets that are not, major arteries if there is criminal behavior or environmental concerns, stuff like that. And we have, as a board, moved to do that. And we have blocked off the streets at the end of Union, the Power Line Road, right there by Park City Superette, kind of across the street there, blocked off there, and at South Bend and Michigan, kind of that area where the fishing sheds are, to keep vehicles from going back there. Back in 22 or 23, I forget which year it was that I pulled stats on it. The sheriff responded out to South Bend area 284 times in the year, and the fire department had been there once a week, just burning things down. So was really a major problem area, even for Delaware Mission Possible. Daphne was telling us that those people that were there were hard to deal with, kind of. So we, as a board, paid for the K-rail to be put in there, and it has made a really significant improvement. There's still people illegally dumping there. They go back to where they can hide and dump back there, which is unfortunate, but it's not near the problem that we had prior to doing that. In that action that the board took, we said that we were going to block off the South Bend area, which we took action on immediately. We also said that we were going to block off the Ruth compound, and this last year, we said we're going to block off Waldo as well. Vehicle access, block off those streets. We haven't done that yet, partially due to personnel shortages in the code enforcement office. We are currently at 2 of 3 positions. One of the guys is relatively new, but I think we're getting rolling again. And again, with the homeless shelter opening up, and then soon thereafter the tiny homes, the transitional homes opening up, we will be able to take a little more affirmative action on getting those folks out of there. It's also a strain on our legal office. Our county council has to deal with every single one of those property owners and getting things straight that way too, which is a huge workload. So
You have to get an agreement with every property owner below where you're going to put a block, correct? Or can you?
No, actually, no. If you block a road, you're blocking out the property owner. Vehicle code allows us to do it, so you don't have to get an agreement from the property owner. You are effectively blocking them from their property.
Yeah,
because of the criminal behavior and the
And also,
environmental
I think they
damages.
can do it also because there's no housing there, no structures. It's all just bare land.
Yeah, structures don't have anything to do with it either.
No?
Well, like I say, this is at least the second time that it's gone from reasonably clean to squalor and cleaned up, money spent, cleaned up pretty nicely.
Yeah.
And now
I
it's,
think you're referring to the Ruth compound area.
well, yeah, I'm referring back to Temple.
Oh, sorry.
And it's now worse than it ever was
Hmm.
at the end of Temple. And so if in fact it gets cleaned up at some point, hopefully, and Dean Wilson's on it and the code enforcement guy's on it a little bit, and they're working on, at some point down the road, something could happen. But if that gets cleaned up, man, it needs to get blocked off so that you don't have to do it the third time. I mean,
Yeah.
it's gone from, I mean, it's way worse now than it ever was.
Agree.
It's bad.
Yeah. The Ruth
It's,
compound's the
it
same
may be
way.
worse, it may be worse than Waldo.
Ruth compound was cleaned up in 2013, and it's probably triple the density of people in there.
It's
that I've ever
sad,
seen
but,
before.
Where is most of the funding for just for the homeless situation? Where is most of that being funneled to? Is it code enforcement, sheriff's department, city police?
I'm not sure I
Okay.
understand the funding from.
How the people that work on the homeless problem, where does their funding come from?
peop-
What's
the-
that?
Well, the state of California gave us a encampment resolution funding grant for $10.8 million. That's where the funding came from to build the shelter and the tiny home.
So how much
village,
did
so-
the shelters cost of that?
The shelter and running the shelter for 5 years is that 10.8 million.
Yeah, because it sounds like a lot, but it's not really.
It's not, because we got to clean up a property.
Yeah,
You know, we had the old mental health building that was defunct, and, you know, that money went into burning that down, rehabbing the property, building a shelter, and putting people in place to, because, you know, you can't take a homeless person and say, okay, have a house. And because they're still in survival mode, you know, they don't have the mental capacity to function like they should straight off the street. So there's continuum of care that goes on, and that's where
so
that
if you could
$10.8
wave
million
your magic wand, how much money do you think it's going to take to address our homeless problem, aside from the shelter?
just clean up.
Clean up, implementing the process of removing them from the land, going through.
Oh my goodness. Clean. Just. Homeless has been. Kyle's behind me saying, "Yeah, we've never had."
Well,
a
I
time
mean,
when
you
there
kind of
wasn't
have to
homeless,
have
but
a goal.
True. Yeah, that's true. I agree that there should be a goal, but we have a cleanup subcommittee. We've kind of not taken affirmative action yet because the shelter wasn't open. We've got to have a place for our homeless to go. Because we
You
know
have to
that
have,
if you
or
push
you
them
want
out
to
of,
have?
huh? What was
I
that?
said, do you have to have? Is that a mandate?
A mandate,
common
a written
sense, common sense.
mandate? No, Helen.
Yeah.
But if we know, like from Eureka, cleaning out the homeless behind the mall there,
Yeah.
they did. They cleaned them all out of that area.
Yeah.
They all moved into town.
Right.
So we know that we have to have a place for them to go. You push them out of one place, they're going to end up somewhere else. So
Exactly.
rather than turn a blind eye to the squalor and the conditions that they live in, we want to do the right thing and get them the help that they need. And we're going to be able to do it here
And
pretty soon.
and that's
with
what I
the
meant.
shelter.
I'm not trying to be going back and forth. But what is the estimate to do that? That's what I'm asking.
Oh, geez, I
I
don't
mean,
know.
is it feasible?
Yeah, you could. throw
If-
'em.
if-
To
if-
completely clean up everywhere that the homeless have brought trailers and RVs and vehicles, and I imagine you're north of $10 million, probably. I mean, that's just
Well, you
me
got
making a
10 million,
guess.
you got 10 million to build pallet houses, which is gonna house 120 people, I think.
Yeah.
Is that what I heard earlier?
And that's,
And,
yeah.
and if you have 700 people homeless, in theory, those aren't accurate figures,
Yeah.
but they're in the ballpark. You've cleaned up 1/6 maybe of the problem by supplying 1/6 of the homeless someplace to stay. That does,
At a time, Rob.
that,
Those-
yeah, that
the
doesn't mean,
transition-
no,
the
that doesn't
tiny
mean,
homes are
that doesn't mean they're gonna
transitional.
stay in that
Right.
thing any longer than a
Right.
day, a week, or 28 years. You don't have any idea how long they're gonna be there. Okay? But
Well, yeah,
if you don't,
we
if
can't
you
do
don't have a place, if you have 700 and you have a place for 100 to go, you still have 500 without some place to go. That doesn't necessarily give you the right legally, based upon the court decisions, to go out and remove the other 500 from where they are. Is that true?
Not immediately, not immediately. And well, and the court decisions, the Grants Pass decision was in our favor. We don't have to do what we were doing initially. Having guys living in Beachfront Park and we couldn't kick them out and things like that. So that is.
They moved them
kind
from
moving
out of
in our
town
favor.
over there downtown.
But
Perfect.
But you have to remember that the tiny home village is transitional. The homeless shelter is a transitional place to go to the tiny home village. The tiny home village is a program that you have to get educated, you save money, then you get out. If you aren't working in the program, you're out. And then we'll deal with you squatting illegally then. But we are doing everything we can to give these people every opportunity to get their feet back under them.
What kind of mental health commitment do we have for the people that choose to try and better themselves in the housing?
We have a mental health that's part of that continuum of care component that goes along with this encampment resolution idea in our homeless shelter and the tiny homes. So there is a mental health component there.
Back in the old days, they were generally referred to as bums, right? And when bums came to Crescent City in the old days, quite a number of years ago, they were given a bus ticket on the Greyhound bus station and sent them to Eureka.
We know that Oregon used to send them to us on the Greyhound as well.
Yeah.
But I hope I was able to answer your guys' questions. in
Yeah,
that
it seems
regard.
like an almost impossible task, however.
Well, like Kyle said,
Now, who's Kyle?
homelessness, homeless people are always going to be
Who
here.
are you?
Kyle's cabinet sheriff's office, so yeah, he lives this as well. He's quietly sitting there behind me in the. You're right.
What did you say? You're representing the sheriff's department?
He's a captain.
Okay, all right. What's your take on it? Yeah.
Oh, Kyle, you get to be at the mic now.
You better, yeah,
I saved
please, don't hold back.
I think like the supervisor was pointing out, not only are these solutions transitional, homelessness itself is generally a transitional problem. There might be a core set of maybe 10% of homeless people who are just, for lack of a more kind term, career homeless. Everybody goes in and out of it, and having some sort of robust option to help those that can get back up on their feet will definitely start to change that permanent encampment issue that you're referring to. The 500 to 600 homeless population, those are not the same 600 people even month to month. They're
Right.
the people going in and out. There are people moving onto couches, leaving the area, more people coming in. So definitely, even though the total number of folks that are going to be able to receive service at any given individual time seems like it is a much smaller percentage than the overall problem, eventually the system will start to work for the people who it can work for. Thank you. Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing what we can. Like you guys have pointed out, it is a problem. It's been a problem for citizens and members of the community for a long time. And I don't feel any heartlessness here. I think you all know that like you pointed out, if in order to solve this, we have to have a place to funnel them into and a way to process them out. If we shoo them away without any other solution, it's not going to be a solved issue. Yeah.
Do you know anything about the sheriff's budget?
I know a few things about a select portion of the sheriff's budget. Currently, my position at the sheriff's office, I'm overseeing the dog pound and a lot of the clerical and administrative staff. So I was previously in the corrections, so I've seen the jail's budget, but I haven't been involved in it in about over a year.
So you don't have a clue how much of the sheriff's budget is generated from county funds?
All of it, yeah.
All of it. I asked how much.
Oh, what the actual, I don't have that number off the top of my head. Yeah.
So
Law enforcement's generally one of the bigger expenses.
Sheriff, law enforcement, their deputies and folks like yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You said they get how much a salary? Well,
Yeah.
okay.
Something along those.
Yeah, that's what.
Mm-hmm.
Don't
That's
leave
great.
after the meeting, Kyle. I need to talk to you.
All right.
And I can give you a guess why.
All right. Well, I'll be right here.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Yes.
At the same, they made CC camps. And they would put them in CC camps and they had to work. So why can't you put a bunch in Bar O and all their camps abandoned? Put them there.
That was before they had rights, huh?
Something along those.
But it worked.
I don't have an answer to that one.
I just have a quick question for you. You're talking about the tiny homes transition. Do you guys have like after the transition period, where they're going to go from there? I mean, is there housing in Crescent City available for the homeless after they transition out of the tiny homes?
Jobs?
Jobs?
The
what's-
idea is job training, job skills training, and
But if you train them, where are they going to work?
getting them to be able to function, paying their own rent, finding their own place.
Where would these jobs be?
Here,
No. Actually, my son was saying that he's seen people with uniforms on going, stopping, changing into their crappy clothes, and then walking off into the swamp.
you bet. Yep, absolutely. There's lots of people that can't afford housing and they have jobs. That's
Yeah.
And I guess
Those
that's
are
where
the
my
people I'd
question
like
was.
to see get into housing and transition.
Yeah, I guess that's where my question was
They're
going, is
working.
like, how is the county gonna help them afford housing after they get out of the transition? Because if they have jobs and then just they can't afford the housing, does the county have anything in place to help them afford housing?
The county won't directly, but we do have some housing projects going on right now. I mean, we've got 160 unit complex going on in the city, and then, but, you know, we're making some pretty good strides
Okay.
getting some housing stock under our belt, so there will be some hope there as well.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to add?
What percentage of the homeless here are employed in the county?
No.
You don't know? Yes, third.
The
I can't see where 600 jobs are going to come from in the county.
So, anybody else have anything to add? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Yeah,
Thank you, guys, for coming tonight.
yeah, thanks
Yeah.
everyone for being here. I motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.